It's been officially 24 hours since the new season of Pokemon Go PvP has started in Pokemon Go, and with it came over 50 move updates to all sorts of Pokemon. So it's safe to say the meta's not the same anymore. So today I want to go through some winners and losers of the Great, Ultra League, and Master League, and what are the best new Pokemon you should be looking out for and trying. Hopefully these Pokemon can also help you push Legend if that's a goal for you this season. Nonetheless though, we're going to get right into it, starting with the Great League. What are going to be the best winners and losers? Well, number one, and the one everyone seems to be talking about right now, is going to be Quagsire and Shadow Quagsire, which was given Mud Bomb and a buffed version of Mud Bomb at that. Before it had a full nuke charge move, but now Quagsire and Shadow Quagsire are able to take on a vast majority of the meta. By the way, for reference, anytime in this video when I am showing graphs, anytime there's an X, it means that Pokemon wins. So for example here, Quagsire beats Registeel. But yeah, as you can see here, Quagsire, Shadow Quagsire, able to beat a lot of the meta, a lot of common Pokemon, specifically the Shadow Quagsire. You're gonna see a lot of great matchups. It does have a hard loss to Cresselia because of course it is a water and ground type, so losing to grass pretty strong. But if you do have one, definitely try this Pokemon out. It's gonna be very strong in the Great League, and specifically if you can grab a Shadow one, it's gonna have a lot better of matchup. However, the regular form of Quagsire does have some perks, like for example, it has a better matchup versus Galarian Stunfisk because it can survive the Earthquake better. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is going to be Walrein. Yes, we know how broken Walrein was that one season it got Icicle Spear, then it got nerfed last season, but it's back because the Icicle Spear got a buff. Yes, Icicle Spear now does 5 more damage, doing 65 damage to Pokemon Go, and Walrein is back, seeing rank 20 for the Shadow and rank 38 for the non. Taking a look at its new matchups here, as you can see, both Walrein and Shadow Walrein able to counter a variety of the Great League meta. Obviously, better matchups versus Pokemon like Galarian Stunfisk, does pretty well against Swampert, although Swampert does beat the Shadow version because it's a little less tanky. Shadow's able to also beat Pelipper and Bastiodon, which is huge. And overall, I think whether you go with the Shadow or the non-Shadow, each of them have their perks. As you can see though, regular Walrein's able to beat Swampert, able to beat Umbreon, able to beat Sableye, meanwhile the Shadow has its own perks. But overall, Walrein, a back contending Pokemon. If you loved Walrein, make sure you grab it, especially if the meta is going to be full of Pokemon weak to ice and ground type moves. And on the topic of ice types, we have a Pokemon that I've always wanted to have some success, and that's going to be Alolan Sandslash and Shadow Alolan Sandslash. As you can see here in the Great League, rank 29 for the Shadow, rank 52 for the regular, and with its new moves, Shadow Claw, which is legacy move, but Ice Punch, and it got access to Drill Run, which before it had Bulldoze, which wasn't a great move. You can see this Pokemon does great against the meta. Again, the Shadow probably going to be a little bit more preferred here, having better matchups versus Lantern, better matchups versus Altaria versus Cresselia, and overall on paper, remember this is on paper, not a lot of perks in having the regular, but if you do not have it, the regular will still work well, and I'm really excited to try this Pokemon. Now you do have to be wary, this Pokemon's Medicham matchup is not popular, and Medicham, we're going to talk about it, is going to be a very strong Pokemon this season because most of the Pokemon that used to counter Medicham are getting a little bit nerfed. Nonetheless, we'll continue here with the winners, going with Dewgong, which is now ranked 39 and got access to Drill Run this season. Drill Run is an amazing addition for Dewgong because it is the perfect coverage move. Dewgong used to struggle against things like Steel types and other sort of like water types, but now it has a move to actually hit those for either neutral or super effective damage, which is amazing for this Pokemon. Now you're going to need Legacy Ice Shard and Icy Wind, so I hope you played that Go Battle Day back in the day, but as you can see, take a look at its matchups in the Great League, able to beat Pokemon like Swampert, Pelipper, great against Altaria, and even this Registeel and Galarian Stunfisk matchup, I think if you threw some shields up, you could probably win it, but the team builder here is not allowing me to do that. But overall, Dewgong, another great Pokemon if you have it to try out this season, and it's actually a pretty tanky one. Now this season, we did get a buff to the move Poison Jab, so the question is Nidoqueen back and ready to shine in Pokemon Go? Because we all know Nidoqueen as the main Poison Jab user. Taking a look at the rankings in the Great League, it's pretty low here, rank 157, 161, but again, rankings are not everything in Pokemon Go PvP. If we actually take a look at Nidoqueen and Shadow Nidoqueen's matchups here, it's actually not that bad. Specifically, the Shadow Nidoqueen, able to beat things like Registeel, Scrafty, Registeel pretty popular, Lickitung, Altaria, lost versus Sableye, but not the worst matchups. I will still say though, I'm not sure if Nidoqueen is back fully to shine because I think the power in Nidoqueen before was the fact that it could spam Poison Jabs and Poison Fangs, but the energy count for Poison Fang is still the same, meaning you're not going to get to them any faster, which is really the perk of having a debuffing move in which you get to it fast and just spam it. The real winner though of the Poison Fang update is going to be Golbat. Golbat's been kind of getting sneaky move updates every single season with Wing Attack buff last season. Poison Fang got a little bit nerfed, but it didn't really matter too much. Now Poison Fang is buffed, giving Golbat some more power. If you want to take a look into its matchups, we'll see here. Destroying Scrafty overall, destroying Medicham, which is again a very strong Pokemon this season, so definitely one you're going to want to keep an eye out for. Beats Pelipper. Now obviously does have some bad matchups, Bastiodon 4-1 and Registeel. Golbat doesn't really do well against those things, pretty much any single steel type, but I still wouldn't sleep on a Golbat, especially because it's a very strong counter to Medicham, which is going to be probably a very popular Pokemon this season. Now we can't talk about Mud Bombs without talking about Wishcash. Wishcash, the one true man of the Mud Bomb. Rank 14 this season, very strong because Mud Bomb, this Pokemon just got a direct upgrade. Now I've always had a problem with Wishcash, in which the fact that it can only do ground moves and you're really bait dependent going up against flying Pokemon, which there still is a lot of flying Pokemon. Noctowl is still very, very strong, but anything that is not a flying Pokemon, Wishcash will do decent against here, beating Registeel, Galarian, Stunfisk, Bastiodon, Lantern, and Altaria. Even though again, this Altaria matchup, I think if Altaria throws up 2 shields and shields your Blizzards correctly, it can win it. But as you can see, a lot of bad matchups. I think Wishcash is a very neutral-ish Pokemon. Personally, I think I'm just not a huge fan of Wishcash. You guys might be, but still a Pokemon to try out this season, see how it plays. Those Mud Bombs are just going to be doing a little bit more damage. I'm not sure if it really changes any of the matchup from last season, but still give it a try. And the last Pokemon we're going to go deep into is going to be Dunsparce. Rank 76 this season. Rollout did get a buff, and honestly, Dunsparce, a pretty strong Pokemon. I actually ended up taking an L to Dunsparce in a regional tournament. I beat one once, but Dunsparce, a sneaky pick with the moveset of Rollout, Drill Run, and Rock Slide. Take a look at Dunsparce's matchups here. Actually does pretty well. I think it's a very overall neutral Pokemon, can handle a lot of neutral scenarios, especially with its moveset. It's kind of like a weird Galarian Stunfisk. It's like a pseudo Galarian Stunfisk. I don't know how to explain it. Now, specifically this Registeel matchup, in the 2-shield, I do believe Dunsparce now wins this. This is not showing the 2-shield, so Registeel still does win this, but Dunsparce can go toe-to-toe with Registeel now in a 2-shield from what I heard. And overall, good matchups across the board. Again, this is only the 1 versus 1 shield, so it's not going to show every scenario, but Dunsparce, definitely a Pokemon to give a try out this season. Over time, it has been getting buffs, and hopefully this season it can shine a little bit more. Now, what about Pokemon that didn't get any move updates, but are now stronger this season? And specifically, I want to take a look at Medicham. I feel like a lot of Pokemon that Medicham has good matchups against has kind of gotten buffed. It does good against Dunsparce. It does good against Walrein. It does good against Alolan Sandslash. It does good against Quagsire. All those buff Pokemon Medicham does well against, and I think you're going to have to be scared of Medicham this season because overall, it's a pretty strong Pokemon. And also, that's a perfect segue into why Medicham is so strong is because some of its counters got nerfed. Specifically, the big one here is Trevenant. Seeing a rank 74 this season. Now, no, Trevenant is not gone forever and a terrible Pokemon, but Seed Bomb now takes more energy and does more damage, so it kind of got like a side grade. It's not a full nerf, but this definitely does hurt Trevenant's matchup, specifically against any Pokemon where the Seed Bomb is very useful, so those dark types, things like that. And as you can see here, yeah, harder loss versus Scrafty probably since last season. Doesn't do as well against Noctowl, even though Noctowl's a pretty bad match. And overall, this Pokemon is a little bit worse this season. But again, Trevenant's still a very strong Pokemon, and don't be scared of the 74 rankings. The main point of Trevenant is that Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball damage is the main bread and butter of this Pokemon, and that core is still there. Another Pokemon I want to talk about is going to be Gliscor. With the new introduction of Walrein with the buff, we also have Shadow Alolan Sandslash coming into the meta. I think Gliscor is a scarier pick this season because there's going to be more Walreins out there. There's going to be more Alolan Sandslashes. So do be wary if you do decide to go with a Gliscor, because all those ice types are out to play this season and have some fun, which I think will only hurt Gliscor a little bit. Other than that though, the nerfs didn't really hurt any other Pokemon, and there's not really anything that kind of has gone downhill. Now shout out to Softoff because they actually made a graph here, which is fun, about the different changes of different Pokemon and how much the rankings have gone up, if that is something you're interested in. But as you can see here, Trevenant lost a big ranking. Meanwhile, Dunsparce jumped up. Quagsire, Shadow probably had the best jump. Regular Quagsire, and all these Pokemon here in the green are going to be Pokemon that got buffed. The blues are going to be Pokemon that barely moved, and the reds are Pokemon that got a little bit nerfed. As you can see, Alolan Ninetales and Shadow Alolan Ninetales kind of getting a little bit nerfed. I think that's just because of like different Pokemon had to move up, but I think these Pokemon are still pretty strong. I'll link this below if you want to check it out. I think it's a pretty fun little graph. Final thing I will say for the Great League, we do have Credilli, Unova Stunfisk, Toxicroak, Emolga, and Lurantis, which all got move updates, but I don't think in the open Great League meta they're going to be that strong, but I do think they're going to be strong in some limited metas. So keep an eye out on those Pokemon, maybe prep some in case, because when we get the return of the Flying Cup, for example, with Emolga, that Pokemon will be stronger. When we get the return of something like the Weather Cup for Credilli, that Pokemon will definitely be stronger in that cup. And that's a perfect segue into the Ultra League, the second league, and what are going to be the best new Pokemon for the league. And no, the changes are pretty similar. We'll start off though with a Pokemon that everybody knows, Clefable. The old used to be Charmer until Charm got nerfed, and now Clefable is back with a new way to play it, Fairy Wind. Clefable team ranked 28 in the Ultra League with Fairy Wind, Moonblast, and Meteor Mash makes it honestly a great Pokemon. I really love that moveset, especially having Meteor Mash. For any many other fairies in the meta. If we actually want to take a look at Clefable's matchups, they're pretty great. As you can see here against the Ultra League meta, you're going to be able to beat Pokemon like Cobalion, Giratina Altered, a super popular one, Virizion, Aurorus, Walrein, Guzzlord, Buzzwole, Double, Scrafty, Defense Deoxys, all that stuff it does well against. Now you do have to be scared of Registeel, and honestly any sort of steel type Clefable does not do well against those because it cannot hit them for super effective at all. But I still am a huge fan of Clefable. I'm definitely excited to try this new way to play Clefable because before it was just tap, charm, charm, charm. Now it's different. Now another new Pokemon that had a lot of potential at first release, but now is pretty strong, is going to be Golisopod. Specifically, Golisopod ranked 26 in the Ultra League with the moveset of Shadow Claw, X-Scissor, and the new move Liquidation. Now this Pokemon reminds me kind of like of a better Kingler, if you don't know. But looking at its matchups here, you can see versus the meta, not terrible. I think this Pokemon overall is a good like neutral Pokemon. It has the Shadow Claw damage for any of those ghost types. It's got X-Scissor for the dark types, also for the psychic types, and Liquidation for anything weak to water. You'll see it have decent matchups versus Cresselia because of Shadow Claw, Cobalion because I think just neutral damage and also it being a bug type. Now it does have to be scared of Pidgeot and the Flyers, but nonetheless, definitely an exciting Pokemon to try out. I'm actually very curious on how this one actually plays out because this is just looking at it on paper, but would really like to try this Pokemon out and glad it's actually finally getting some play. Finally, one of the other big winners of this season is going to be Miltank in the Ultra League, ranked 62 with the new rollout buff with the moveset of Body Slam and Ice Beam. Now this is going to be an XL Pokemon, which is going to be pretty hard to get because I don't think Miltank spawns that often, so you're going to need it level 50 or near level 50. But looking at its matchups here, overall, again, another neutral Pokemon, reminds me a lot of Double, able to hit a lot of neutral damage. Decent matchups versus Cresselia, Giratina Ultra because it has Ice Beam, Walrein because I guess it can just spam. It also has Rollout, Guzzlord because it has Ice Beam, Charizard because it has Rollout to do a lot of damage, etc., etc. Not the worst matchup, a very neutral Pokemon. Not sure if it's going to be worth a full investment because there are better, probably neutral Pokemon to run, but definitely one to try out and give it a go if you have. Finally, of course, Sandslash as well, getting a buff just like in the Great League, in the Ultra League as well. A very strong Pokemon, gonna actually probably be better in the Ultra League because I feel like there's less counter users and Medicham is not a threat there, so I'd probably actually prefer running Alolan Sandslash in the Ultra League if you could. Walrein also getting a buff in the Ultra League, probably stronger again in the Ultra League because it has more bulk and also specifically because it is a great counter to Giratina Altered, which is a super popular Pokemon. It can also be Cobalion with Earthquake, although that matchup's a little bit iffy because you are getting hit for super effective. And Nidoqueen doing pretty well in the Ultra League as well. Rank 59, rank 72. I would actually probably prefer running a Nidoqueen in the Ultra League because again, stay away from Medicham and all those Pokemon that do pretty well against you. And overall, I think just have kind of better matchups in the Ultra League, able to beat things like Registeel, Cobalion, any sort of fighter, dark. You're obviously gonna have your bad matchups, but I think Nidoqueen, not bad for the Ultra League if you have one. I actually have one, so I might try it. Now, if we want to talk about losers in the Ultra League, not a lot. Trevenant, specifically looking at it still performs very well in the Ultra League like it does in the Great League. I think it's mainly because Trevenant relies a little bit less on Seed Bomb in the Ultra League. Less Pokemon you're really going to be using Seed Bomb versus, and really takes more advantage of the Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball spam. So definitely you can keep running Trevenant in the Ultra League, and overall, nothing really got that nerfed for the Ultra League meta. But that moves us perfectly into the Master League, the final meta here. What are going to be the best new Pokemon? And really, not that much changes. The main one's gonna be Ursaluna getting access to Ice Punch, which is actually a great upgrade for Ursaluna because before it had Thunder Punch, but now it has Ice Punch, which specifically for the Master League and the Master League Premier, it can hit all those Dragon type, Dragonite, Garchomp, all those people for super effective damage, which is huge for Ursaluna. You'll see rank 31, rank 41 for the Shadow in the Master League. No rankings for the Master Premier right now. I think it would do better there. But if you want to take a look at here in the Master League, you're gonna see, you know, does well against Giratina Origin Form, which is of course a Dragon type, Zekrom. Now, funny enough, in some scenarios, it still doesn't do well, like can't beat Dragonite. I guess you can get hit with a superpower. I don't know if this actually really represents Ursaluna's matchup because I think they're very shield dependent and stuff like that. But I think Ursaluna is a stronger Pokemon for the Master League and specifically for the Master Premier. Have one, definitely keep it, give it a try. I think I'm excited to see how it does. Would love for it to get Shadow Claw though. That would make it even better because right now it's still running Tackle. Another Pokemon to look out for the Master League is going to be Golisopod, just like the Ultra League, rank 62. Again, I don't know how well it's going to do in the Open Master League because just its moveset is not that strong for it. Like it doesn't have a lot to handle something like Giratina, but I think again in the Master Premier it'll be very strong. Yeah, looking at it, the regular Master League can beat Groudon because it has Liquidation, Zacian Hero, Mewtwo, Xerneas, Mamoswine, Zarude, Ursaluna. A couple Pokemon I can beat, but I think this is one you could look out for the Master Premier, no legendary. And as far as losers for the Master League, there really isn't any. Not a lot of move updates really at all for the Master League. I think the meta is going to stay pretty similar. So you can, expect not too much changing in that league, but mainly the Great League, Ultra League are gonna have the biggest changes. Now, it's very important to note after watching this video, everything I mentioned, it's all on paper. This is PvPoke, which does an amazing job of breaking down the meta and the best Pokemon. But again, at the end of the day, it's how the Pokemon performs. So I definitely would recommend giving the Pokemon a try and specifically checking out all the PvP YouTubers who are going to be testing out these Pokemon. We got people like Zionic, Yonkis, Homeslice Henry, Dan Ottawa, Purple Kyogre, Pogo King, and plenty of other Pokemon Go YouTubers that I definitely recommend you go ahead and check it out because they're gonna have actual gameplay of these Pokemon showing you guys how they actually perform. Pokemon on paper is only on paper. Some Pokemon that can be really good on paper can be actually bad when they perform and vice versa. Also, I will be testing out some of these new Pokemon on Sunday at 11 a.m. EST on stream, so come tune in then if you wanna see some of these Pokemon in my hands. I got plenty of plans for fun stuff coming for me on the PvP side of things, so stay tuned for all of that, and I wish you guys all the best if you're gonna be pushing for Legend this season. We'll see y'all next one, guys. Fall from this, everybody. Peace.